My name is Josh Spiewak, and I am here today interviewing Doug Hardy, the host of Extra on 94.1 FM, The Voice, which airs on Monday through Friday at 1:45 p.m. to talk about his professional career and how he got to where he is today. So please enjoy. Well, Doug, thanks for being here with me today for this little interview.
You bet.
Let's just jump right into the questions I have for you. But let's build some credibility. How long have you been working in broadcasting?
If you're looking for credibility, I'm not sure you've come to the right place. But I've been in radio over 20 years.
20 years.
20 years. And here in the Treasure Valley, I've bounced around the dial a little bit. I did the morning show on KQXR, which is the X 100.3 for 6 years. The morning show on J105 for 2 years, and afternoon drive at the Eagle for almost 5 years, which is 96.9. And now I'm at Inspirational Family Radio on KBXL 94.1 and some of their sister stations. So that's where I am at this time.
And Doug, what was it just about broadcasting that made you want to make a career out of it?
I think it was just an opportunity to try to do something creative and be able to just take a format that you have like radio and be able to communicate to people, be able to inform people, entertain people. One of the things that's important with radio is radio really in and of itself is just a tool. In and of itself, there's not a career in radio. Radio is a tool to be able to bring something to people. So like a carpenter uses a hammer, radio is a tool to communicate something, but you have to have something that you want to communicate. And for me, for a lot of years, it was just entertaining people, goofing around, making prank phone calls, having fun in the morning, and giving people something enjoyable on their way to work. So how to make people's days just a little bit better. That's really what brought me into it, was how can I use radio just to be able to bring something hopefully entertaining to people listening.
Awesome. And so, Doug, you've been in radio for over 20 years. So have you noticed like any changes into just how radio works from back then till now as far as listeners or just the way things are produced?
Yeah. I mean, I'm old. So I've seen a lot of things. When I first got into radio, the technology was totally different. So when I first got into radio, the technology was primarily carts, which are, they look like 8-tracks, and you would have commercials on there or songs on there, and you would have to manually stick them in the machines.
Oh, wow.
Fire them off. I know, this is crazy.
Yeah,
huh?
That's too much work.
I know. And for you, it's like, oh my goodness, what century did you live in?
Yeah.
I get that. CDs, you would play your music on CDs, so you'd have to queue up your CD to the right track. But everything had to be manually fired to go on the air. So every commercial, every song had to be manually played. So you always had to have somebody in the studio to be able to make sure the station keeps on the air. If you don't have anybody, you're in trouble because you can't automate anything. Then some basic automations started coming in, and you got to the point where you actually could pre-record shows. So a lot of the music shows that you hear on the air are people recording what's called voice tracks. Mm-hmm. So especially on the weekends, you'll hear people, DJs on the air, but they're not even really there. So a lot of stuff became automated where you didn't need people 24/7. So that was a huge thing. And being able to edit using a computer instead of reel-to-reel machines on tape, that's been a big change over the past 20 years. So the technology has been a huge thing, but really the medium has stayed the same. You're still communicating to people kind of on a one-on-one basis that are listening in their cars at home. So overall, that hasn't changed. It's just really the day-to-day workings have changed.
Okay. Yeah. And so, Doug, what would you say was like your biggest challenge in doing radio from your experience? What was like one of the biggest challenges you had to deal with and you overcame it?
I'll give you a couple. Well, one, just personally, an incredible fear of the microphone, an incredible fear of just opening up a mic and knowing that all these people are listening to you. That was overwhelming for me. When I got started, my very first job, which I started as an intern in Florida, the guy that was the program director of the station literally would come in and push my head like back up to the microphone.
Oh, wow.
Because I would start talking and I didn't even realize it, but I would start talking and I would just start gradually backing away from the microphone.
Oh.
Because I found it so incredibly frightening.
Yeah.
So I had to overcome that, and that would have been a personal one. Then I guess when we were at the X, we were just kind of this fringe station, and nobody ever thought that we could really impact or get ratings or do anything. And we were pretty much written off that we were just going to be kind of this fringe station that was maybe getting a few of the younger listeners. So we had to overcome that and had some success back in the day of beating some of the other stations in town. But that was a long time battle and was a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah. And so your radio voice, Doug, the radio voice you have now, did you have that back when you first started, or was it something that developed over time and you really got the hang of it?
Well, that's an interesting thing too. You know, in the 70s and even going into the 80s, having that radio voice was a big deal. You wanted to have that kind of what seems now like cheesy, but that, hey, how you doing? You know, you wanted to have that radio voice on when you're broadcasting. And that's really gone away. You know, that's another change I think that's happened in radio, is that radio voice, that show voice really isn't there anymore. So now it's pretty much just communicating as you are.
Yeah.
So a lot of that has shifted as well. So, I mean, it's just now just talking and communicating much more than putting on that kind of show.
Right. Yeah, and I noticed that a lot too, like just in the past 10 years or so, when we have podcasts now where just your average Joe is just podcasting his own voice and recording videos and whatnot. Mm-hmm. They're not using that radio voice. They're just using their normal voice, and people are drawn to that because they're just producing good content. I think that's what people are looking for nowadays, is the content.
I think so. I think people are looking for more of an authenticity, something real. Because even names, back in the day, almost everybody had some kind of radio name that was not their name.
Yeah.
Something that just sounded really cool on the air. And that's gone away as well. Basically, everybody, I think, uses pretty much their real name anymore. So that's been a little bit of a shift as well.
Yeah. So a lot of things have definitely changed over the years. And Doug, just to wrap things up a bit, what advice would you give to someone that's just starting out, looking to get into radio or broadcasting in general? What advice would you give to someone to get started?
I would echo back to what I said before. Just always remember that coming into radio, you need to bring something that you are going to use radio as a tool to be able to do. And it has to be bigger than just, I think it would be cool to work at a radio station. It needs to be, I want to inform people. I have a passion for news and current events. I want to be able to bring that to people. That's what I want to do. I have a passion for music, and I love sharing behind the scenes things about music and my knowledge of music with people. That's what I want to do. I can use radio to do that. Or it could be behind the scene things. I have a passion for technology, and I would love to be able to build a cool radio station website and help with the technology side to be able to bring the product out to people. So, I love marketing, and radio might be a way that I can use my marketing skills to bring those out, or sales, or whatever it is. But know specifically what it is that you want to bring to the table and what you want to do. Then if you want to try to bring that into the radio medium, do that. But get that clearly identified and specific of, why do I want to walk through that door and try to do something in radio? Get that established first. Use radio as your tool to accomplish that.
Yeah. Radio is definitely not dead, right, Doug?
And people thought it would be.
Yeah.
That was another thing. When satellite radio came in, people thought terrestrial radio, which is just broadcast radio, was going to die, that it would not be able to keep up. All the podcasts that's out there and Pandora and all the music services, people thought this was going to be the end of the radio industry, and it's still standing strong and it's still relevant and still matters because people, I think, like that local connection and to be able to turn on something that's broadcast from their own area that kind of belongs to that valley and is part of the culture there. That still connects with people, and so radio is still standing strong.
Yeah, definitely agree. Well, Doug, thanks so much for sitting with me today for this interview.
You're not going to use any of this, are you?
No, none of this.
You're gonna call Mike Casper as soon as we're done. Hey, can I get an interview with you?
Yeah, this is just a practice interview. I'm gonna do the real one with someone else. So
good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Josh.
No problem.